Welcome to NYNJPA Weather, your weather source for the Northern Mid-Atlantic. I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. Here's our surface map as of 9 a.m. and as you can see, high pressure is in control everywhere. The storm that produced the heavy rain and the strong winds yesterday basically is over the Canadian Maritimes and quickly moving into the Northern Atlantic. So high pressure is pretty much in control, making for a wonderful day today to go outside and do a little partying and go into the bars and whatnot. But one thing is for sure, the winds are going to be light and the temperatures are going to be near normal, with temperatures basically in the upper 40s for many locations, possibly a few lower 50s in the Philadelphia metropolitan area. Meanwhile, we have an area of low pressure developing in the southern plains. That low pressure is going to mean trouble for the northern mid-Atlantic, especially northeastern New Jersey, on Thursday through Friday morning. We're looking at a significant flash flooding situation developing here. But the good news is that high pressure will remain in control at least through Wednesday night, so enjoy the tranquil conditions while you can. Let's take a look at the water vapor satellite picture. On the water vapor this morning, you can see a very dynamic and strong disturbance that's developing over the southern plains. It's already starting to pull moisture in from the tropical Pacific and starting to do so from the Gulf of Mexico. As this disturbance moves towards the Ohio Valley, the upper-level trough associated with this storm will become what we call negatively tilted, and that's going to start to draw in moisture from the Atlantic. Now, the latest European model guidance from the Penn State EWAL has a surface low developing around central Virginia by Thursday evening. Now, a few things I want to point out. One, our low pressure system is not incredibly strong, but it's slow moving, and I'll show why at 500 millibars in just a moment. But notice we have high pressure that is stuck up around the Canadian Maritimes, and we have a very strong pressure gradient that will produce winds that will come off of the Atlantic, basically moving from southeast to northwest. So we know at the lower levels of the atmosphere that we're going to have a very strong fetch off the Atlantic, drawing in a tremendous amount of moisture. But there's trouble even more so at the mid and upper levels. Now, here at 500 millibars is where, as a meteorologist, you become a bit concerned. Now, obviously, you probably will notice the very strong lifting that is developing over the Tennessee and Ohio River valleys with a rather strong negatively tilted trough. However, that isn't the key here. The key to this forecast is actually the ridge that's off the Atlantic coast. Why is this important? Well, this Western Atlantic Ridge, one, is a different type of blocking mechanism in the Atlantic. It's not like a negative NAO pattern where you have a large upper level low sitting off of the Canadian Maritimes. This is actually a positive NAO pattern. But this ridge is going to slow down the progression of the low pressure system and enhance the moisture transport from the Atlantic into the northern mid-Atlantic. Basically, that's a lot of heavy rain moving into the New Jersey coast and in areas where, quite frankly, we don't need it. Parts of northeastern New Jersey, especially around the Raritan River Basin, is already flooded, and unfortunately, in this type of setup, typically it can produce rainfall amounts anywhere from 1 to 3 inches, and model guidance is starting to spit out anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of rain. Obviously, this is a dangerous situation and one where many people are going to have to prepare for flash flooding. As far as any potential for snow, notice that our polar vortex is way up in Canada, and that's where all the cold air is going to stay. There's very little in the way of any polar or Arctic air with this low pressure system. Any type of potential snow is going to be likely located in Canada or extreme northwestern New York, and there will be no threat for any type of snow whatsoever for portions of the interior of northeastern Pennsylvania or the Hudson Valley, which complicates matters because now you're going to have a rapidly melting snowpack with very heavy rain, and that rain is going to be elevated as it's moving up along the mountains, which is called orographic lifting. So clearly we are dealing with a setup that would introduce a significant problem with flash flooding. So this storm is going to be one that we're going to have to deal with and is going to create some problems. So I'm expecting the rainstorm to leave by Friday morning. Friday afternoon is still going to be a very windy day with winds anywhere from 15 to 30 miles per hour with higher gusts. But the good news is that high pressure will take hold, and high pressure will be in control throughout much of this weekend and all the way through next week. Yes, there'll be a few weak disturbances, but overall, most locations will be dry after Friday. In fact, when we look at 500 millibars on Sunday evening, really, we don't have any strong storms at all developing over the northern Atlantic or throughout much of America for that matter. The pattern is what we call progressive. It's nearly zonal, with troughs and ridges moving across the nation relatively quickly. So really there's no major blocking set up anymore, and these storms are relatively weak and fast moving. As we look at for the end of next week, you can see really there is no blocking whatsoever. Our polar vortex is all the way up in Greenland. That is a very strongly positive NAO and Arctic oscillation. So all the cold air is going to remain up in Canada. We have a trough that's going to sit off the west coast, and it's going to spit out Pacific disturbances that will be rather strong as they move into California, but weaken rapidly as they move through the northern tier and towards the Great Lakes. By the time they reach the northern Mid-Atlantic, they won't be able to produce much more than a few isolated showers to wide scattered showers. And the air masses, as you can see at 850 millibars, all the cold air is locked up in Canada. And basically what these disturbances are going to produce next week is a Pacific air mass invasion throughout the entire United States. And that generally means warmer temperatures for the region. In fact, I would not be surprised if many locations by the middle and end of next week see temperatures basically in the upper 50s to mid 60s for highs. So we're clearly moving into a much warmer regime where the cold air is locked up in Canada and we really don't have any threats for any major storm. And that's basically what we're going to see after this storm on Thursday and Friday is high pressure moving in and out. So to recap for this forecast, the main storm, the main event is basically Thursday on through Friday morning. I expect light rain to develop early on Thursday, remaining rather scattered until we get into the afternoon hours, and then moderate to heavy rainfall can be expected from Thursday afternoon all the way through until early Friday morning. Rainfall amounts could exceed anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of rain with locally higher amounts. There will be a significant problem with flash flooding, especially in the river basins around the Raritan River, the Delaware River, basically anywhere that basically has elevated flood stages already or already flooding. They are in some serious trouble for Friday morning, and just try to stay prepared as much as possible. Also, another threat on Thursday evening will be the strong winds, and that will continue on through Friday, ranging anywhere from 15 to 30 miles per hour with gusts over 40 miles per hour. And that's even going to be amplified even more on Friday afternoon as sinking air at 850 millibars is transported down towards the surface where wind gusts can be rather strong, much like what we saw yesterday. And then after this storm leaves, relatively tranquil weather conditions. So we have one major storm, and then we pretty much have clear sailing all the way through next week with moderating temperatures. Thank you for visiting NYNJPA Weather as your weather source for the Northern Mid-Atlantic. I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. Have an excellent day.